So it's been on this whole time. That'll mess all kinds of sound stuff up. Luke chapter 14. We just finished up Luke chapter 13. I believe this is sermon number 68. I don't put them on my sermon. I have them on my computer marked, but I think this is sermon number 68 out of the book of Luke. We just finished chapter 13 last week, where Jesus Christ really lamented. I mean, he was sorrowful for Jerusalem and the Jews in particular, because he had such a better life planned for them. If they would have only accepted him, if they would have only acknowledged that he was the Messiah, he had grand plans for what he was going to do for them. But since they were going to reject him, he decided, I can just cry. That's all I can do. I can just be sorrowful for it because you reject me. By the way, you can still reject Jesus Christ today. You can say, yes, I believe what the Bible says, or I hear what the Bible says. I hear you say that he's the Son of God, that he's the Messiah, that he came and he died for my sins. I feel the Holy Spirit tugging on my heart, telling me that I need to trust him as my personal Savior, but I don't want to. And that rejection, Jesus is in heaven just sorrowful, because he's got a better plan and a better life for you. That was last week's message. If you'd like to go back onto our YouTube page and listen to it, or on our website, you can. This week's message, we're going to start chapter 14. Amen? And chapter number 14, we're going to take a larger text than I'd usually take. But in fact, I had to break it down even more than I wanted to for its continuity. But just for time's sake, it really should go into next week. I'm going to encourage you, next week, we're actually finally going to preach our theme verse. Finally. When I launched this theme in April, I thought, we'll be there in no time. I mean, we were in like chapter 11, I think, of Luke, and it was in April, and I thought, we'll be there in like a couple months. Here we are, October, we'll be the middle of October, and we'll finally get to our theme verse, so I'm looking forward to preaching that next week. So we're going to get all the way to verse 14 today. So if you would please stand if you're able, in honor of God's Word. I'd like to stand for the flag and for the Word, amen? Amen. And for women, by the way, if they come on the platform. just a thought, it's an honor thing. Verse 14, or verse 14, chapter 14, verse number 1. And it came to pass, as he went into the house of one of the chief Pharisees to eat bread on the Sabbath day, that they watched him. Of course, this would be Jesus. And behold, there was a certain man before him which had the dropsy. It's a cool name. He's got the dropsy. That's how old people say Walmart. I was going to the Walmart. Dropsy. And Jesus, answering, spake unto the lawyers and Pharisees, saying, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath day? Remember, those are the religious elites. These are the guys that know everything. He just asked them a question. Verse 4. And they held their peace, and he took him and healed him and let him go. And answered them, saying, again, nobody said anything, but they're thinking stuff. He's answering what they're thinking in their minds. How awesome would that be, to get a glimpse into what people are thinking in their minds? And answered them, saying, which of you shall have an ass or an ox fallen into a pit, and will not straightway pull him out on the Sabbath day? And they could not answer him again to these things. And he put forth a parable to those which were bidden. That would be invited. Bidden is, invited. When he marked, that's when he observed, when he saw, how they chose out the chief rooms, saying unto them, so here's the parable. When thou art bidden of any man to a wedding, sit not down in the highest room, lest a more honorable man than thou be bidden of him. And he that bade thee, and him come and say to thee, give this man place, and thou begin with shame to take the lowest room. But when thou art bidden, go and sit down in the lowest room, and when he that hath bade thee cometh, he may say unto thee, friend, go up higher. Then shalt thou have worship in the presence of them that sit at meat with thee. For whosoever exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. Then said he also to him that bade him. So he just talked to people that God invited. Now he's talking to the people that invited him, more particularly the man that invited him, which most likely was the chief Pharisee, that bade him. When thou makest a dinner or a supper, by the way, those are two different things. Bible just said it. I know some of y'all from the South are about to get argumentative, just saying, Bible just said it. Call not thy friends, nor thy brethren, neither thy kinsmen, nor thy rich neighbors, lest they also bid thee again, And a recompense, that's in both messages today. Sunday morning, Sunday night, all the text, recompense, all over the place. Don't know why. God. Okay. Recompense, it basically just means to pay back. Recompense, be made thee. But when thou makest a feast, call the poor, and the maimed, and the lame, and the blind. Or sorry, just the blind, not and the blind. The blind. And thou shalt be blessed, for they cannot recompense thee, for thou shalt be recompensed at the resurrection of the just. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask that you would bless this time together, bless the time in your word, empty me of self, fill me with the Holy Spirit, open up the hearts of your people today. And I ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. You may be seated. Thank you for standing. Find my water. Titled the message, Lessons Learned Around the Dinner Table. Lessons learned around the dinner table. Table manners. Table manners. They're becoming a lost knowledge in art form in our day and society. Especially many from my generation, barely know a few. Don't chew with your mouth open. Don't put your elbows on the table, stuff like that. But there's a lot of table manners that are pretty much long gone forgotten, the generation after me. Because my generation has forgotten most of them or had never learned them, is not learning them either. Now, I'm sure we all have some good stories of terrible table manners. If you really want to experience bad table manners, go to camp with teenagers or juniors. I'm not even necessarily saying our teens and juniors, because the way it works at camp is you just get sat somewhere. So sometimes you're by your teenagers, sometimes you're by somebody else's teenagers, sometimes you're by some kid's baby that flings food, sometimes you're by a junior who talks with his mouth open, and it is an experience to eat at camp. It is like you can watch all the table manners be broken just by looking around you. It's wonderful. Nothing is better than catching half-eaten food on your face from somebody else. Because they can't wait to tell you something. They have to do it with their mouth full. Or trying to eat your potatoes and somebody's sleeve dips in it because they can't ask for something. They're just going to reach across 4 people's plates to get it. Or dip their shirt when they stand up into your food. It's wonderful. Now, no one spit on Jesus or dipped their sleeve in his food. But the passage we are in today definitely shows us some terrible table manners. But Jesus will look past those bad manners in order to teach. He wants to teach the people lessons around the dinner table. By the way, parents, grandparents, one of the best places to teach your kids is actually around the dinner table. Did you know that? I know. Eating in front of the TV is much more entertaining. I'm saying that seriously. I'm not being sarcastic. I would rather sit there and watch the Dodgers play the Giants and eat in peace. Or the Cowboys play the Giants and eat in peace. But around dinner time, it's a good time to get your family together. Hey, it's a good time to teach them about selfishness or selflessness. When you're serving the food and there's 5 pieces of meat and there's 5 people and your son grabs 2, it's a good time to teach them not to be selfish, but it's a good time to teach good life lessons. That is a complete side note. I just wanted to throw that in there to help you guys. And so I hope you enjoyed that little sermonette. All right, let's look back at the passage here, Jesus teaching around the dinner table. All right, so we don't really know what preceded verse 1. We go straight from chapter 13 where he's lamenting that he wanted to call the people of Jerusalem unto himself, but they didn't want to come. He wanted to, like a mother hen, bring them under his wing and protect them and love them, and they just refused that. And then all of a sudden, boom, and it came to pass. So we don't know if it's been a day or 2 or even a couple weeks. I don't think it's been a long period of time as far as months, because he's already on the trail to Jerusalem, so we're going to get a lot more of his life in a lot shorter time. So more of his life's going to be recorded. So maybe the same day, but it may have been, I believe, because it doesn't say in that same day, it says, and it came to pass, probably a day or 2 later, maybe the next village. And we don't know what brought this on. Was he invited by the chief Pharisee? Because we know he's at his house. Was he invited by one of the other Pharisees that knew that the chief Pharisee was having a get-together? And you'll find out soon enough it was a trap, so they all knew about it. So we don't know who invited him, but Jesus shows up. Like a gentleman, because by the way, Jesus was always a gentleman. Study it out. You can search up and down for Jesus. Jesus was always a gentleman. It was amazing. He was always a gentleman. And it's encouraging that we can still be gentlemen, men and women. You can be, I don't want to say it. You can be well-mannered women. I'll say it that way. Some of you I don't think can, but some can. Throughout this encounter, I'm going to kind of just throw lessons, instead of all of them at the end, I'm just going to kind of throw lessons at you, but I'll number them, okay? I think we have 5 lessons today that we're going to learn from the Word of God. Some are ones that I pulled out specifically for us, and some are ones right there in the text for the Pharisees, which still means, guess what? It's for us. Because it was recorded in the Word of God and preserved all this time so we could get it. So we're going to I'm randomly going to throw lessons out at you. And we'll get into the first one right here. Lesson number 1. Ministry didn't take time off for Jesus, and it shouldn't for you. Ministry didn't take time off for Jesus, and it didn't for you. Jesus is invited to the Pharisees' house, full well knowing what's going to happen when he gets there, full well knowing what their plan is, knowing their hearts, knowing their intentions, knowing they're not going to get saved, knowing they're not going to trust him, knowing they're not going to believe that he's the Messiah, knowing they're not really even going to listen to him, knowing that they have their own devious plans in mind, and he still said, I am going to go. Because ministry does not take a day off. Now, don't get offended here. There's never a time when you stop being a child of God that is supposed to be propagating the gospel. I'm on vacation. Well, guess what? You're on vacation and you can still be a witness and a testimony. I remember Bruce Humbert, I think he pastors in Chicago. I know it's Illinois. He comes and he'll teach and preach at Heartland every now and then, or he did. And he is the greatest, one of those curled mustaches you'll ever see. He waxes that thing up. You say, hey, Brother Humbert, how'd you get your mustache like that? He says, I wake up and I kiss my beautiful wife and it just right into it. And he's a great guy. Anyways, he was telling the guys in one of our classes, he was teaching a story. He was on a cruise with his wife. They're on vacation. He is a pastor. He is bombarded all the time. He's on a vacation. His phone doesn't work. There's no reception. He doesn't have internet. He is ready to just check out. You know what I mean? And come to find out, somebody finds out he's the pastor, asks him to preach on the chapel that's on the cruise. He gets asked to preach, doesn't want to. He said, I was so upset. I was like, I am on vacation. I don't want to preach. I didn't come to preach. And but he did because they asked him to on a Sunday. And he said somebody got saved that day, and they wanted him to preach again the next day. He ended up preaching like 2 or 3 days in a row, and the crowd kept getting bigger, and multiple people got saved throughout that boat ride. And he said, I felt so bad for having such a bad attitude at the beginning because I was being so selfish, saying, this is my time. You don't have your time. You are the Lord's servant. When he saved you, he redeemed you, he bought you with a price. Your time is his time. And no matter what you're doing, he says you are in ministry, you are doing, and what I mean by ministry, telling people about Jesus, giving out tracts, inviting people to church, ministering to people's needs or whatever it is, you are always on the clock. You say, well, you're on the clock, you're the pastor. No, we are all on the clock. Okay, so that's lesson number 1. It seems strange that Jesus would go to dinner with the Pharisees, or if it does, understand that Jesus is not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. That's what 2 Peter 3:9 says. He's willing to go to the down and out. I'm so glad we have a God that's willing to go to those that are broken, that those that have issues, that those that are struggling, and those that are poor. But he's also willing to go to the rich and the exalted and the ones that have money and the ones that think they're too good. And so Jesus, that's why he went, because even if they didn't think they had anything to learn from Jesus, he still knew he had some things he wanted to teach them. So he shows up. He knew exactly what this invitation was about. As he enters the house of the chief Pharisee on the Sabbath day, so this would be their Saturday, the day that the Jews worshiped the Lord, verse 1 tells us, as he enters, they watched him. Here we find our second lesson from around the dinner table. Lesson number 2 is this: as a Christian, we're always being watched. We're always being watched. Oh, well. I don't know about that, Pastor. I mean, people aren't always watching. Yes, look, let me get into this and then I'll explain it a little further. The they would be the chief Pharisee and the other Pharisees. And as I said last week, so they always travel in packs, so they're all watching Jesus. They kept their eyes on him because there was a plan. Look at verse 2. It tells us that, and behold, there was a certain man before him which had the dropsy. Dropsy was a general term, and I had to look this up because I'd never looked up what dropsy was, and I'd never heard, oh, pray for me, Pastor, I've got the dropsy, so I had to look it up. It was a general term for a number of diseases. So I guess a number of diseases fall under the umbrella of what they called dropsy. But mostly it was of the heart, liver, kidneys, and brain that causes water to collect in the cavities of the body on its surface or its limbs. So it's basically you just retain a lot of water and swell, and they didn't have the medication or the tools and the means to drain said water. You were still deemed clean, even though you might have been swollen, kind of deformed. You were still clean to come to dinners or to be a part of society, but you stood out. You were kind of somebody people would stare at. So this man has dropsy. Now, the way the text is worded does not indicate that this man was invited to the house for dinner. He was not a dinner guest. He was just invited to the house. Now, there's a difference there. So Jesus shows up knowing that these men have put a man in their house. They've invited a guy over, not for what they can do for him. And by the way, how wicked. They're not looking to feed this man. They're not looking to encourage this man. They invited this man over strictly to use him to set a trap on Jesus. The trap is twofold. One, they want to see, can Jesus really heal this man? By the way, if these Pharisees are in a different town and they've been hearing about how Jesus heals and does all these miracles, you want to see that in person. I'd like to see that in person. I mean, we don't see miracles like that, but if Jesus was around today, I would travel pretty far just to see him do a miracle. So that was probably the first part. But the second part was, will he do this on the Sabbath day? Will he heal a man that is in need on the Sabbath day? By the way, even if he didn't, they would probably get onto him still. Oh, well, you don't love this man enough to do anything for him? Anyways, so it was all a trap. It was all a trap. This man was not invited to eat. This man was there simply as a trap, and that's why they were watching him. The world is always watching you. Your coworkers are watching you. They know you're a Christian. I hope they know you're a Christian. If your coworkers don't know you're a Christian, you've already failed at lesson number 1, which is you're never supposed to I'm at work. I'm not here to be a Christian. I'm here to make money. No, your Christianity, your relationship with God comes before your job title, no matter where you are. I remember, I'll never forget this. I was an outward professed to be a Christian, even when I started working in the oil fields at 18. And of course, it was with some of the most ruthless guys you'll ever meet. And I remember my driller. By the way, whatever your driller says to do, you do, pretty much. That's the rule. In the hierarchy of the oil rig, there's the driller, and if he says jump, you literally just start jumping. I mean, he'll fire you the next day if you don't. And then there's the derrick hand. He'd be the next in command. And then there's the lead tong and chain tong, and then you're the worm if you're at the bottom. That's where I was at 18. You're at the bottom. You're the worm. And so he gives me like $1 in quarters. He says, go get me a newspaper. He didn't want to get out of the truck at the gas station. He's the driller. He can do whatever he wants. So I take the quarters. And on my way, the derrick hand, the second in command, says, get me one too. Now, I just want to be clear here. I didn't understand the rules of a newspaper stand thing. Just want to be clear. I'm sorry. I know that hurt your feelings, Brother Nathan. I'm in my 20s. Leave me alone. So I put the quarters in, and it unlocks. So I grab 2 newspapers, and I get back in the truck. The entire 2-hour drive to the truck, they ridiculed me for stealing. I didn't know it was an honor system that you put $1 in, you get one newspaper, you put another $1 in or whatever, you get another. I didn't know that. I'm being completely honest. I really didn't know that. But I was ridiculed the whole way because that was the one fault they could find in me thus far. Because I didn't cuss, I wouldn't cheat, I wouldn't work hard, I wouldn't lie. I did my very best, but I didn't know the rules. And I tried to explain to them, I didn't even know that. Oh, sure you didn't know that. You just stole the news. Anyways, because your coworkers are watching. They know who you are. If they know who you are, they're watching. If they don't, again, I'll reference back lesson 1. Your family's watching. They may not say anything out loud, but they show up to your house and they wonder, it's a Sunday, are they going to go to church today? They talk about loving the Lord. Do they read their Bible? Are they going to pray when they eat? Maybe before they eat? Even people who don't even know you are watching you. This is a story from another pastor. When he was a youth pastor. Now he's an older pastor, and you'll tell by this illustration. I don't have a good illustration like this, but he said back in the days with like movie video rental places, Blockbuster, those things. He says I do remember those. I'm just saying I was a kid. Anyways, he was an adult. He was in the youth ministry. He wasn't married yet, and so he'd watch movies in his free time. Anyways, he shows up to the Blockbuster or whatever, says, hey, do you have such and such a movie? The guy says, yes, it's over there. He goes, he sees the movie. He picks up the VHS. That would be, it's a tape thing. It looks, anyways. Picks up the VHS. Some of y'all are like, I still got a whole collection. I don't know what you're... Picks up the VHS, reads that it's rated R. So he puts it back and picks something else. Gets to the counter, starts paying. The guy says, where's such and such a movie? And he said, I saw that it was rated R. I didn't feel comfortable renting it. He said, well, I appreciate that. And the pastor was telling me, he says, I found it very odd that he said that. Why would somebody that wants me to rent movies, this is his job for me to rent movies. Why would he appreciate that I didn't rent a movie? And then he says, yeah, I know that you're the youth pastor over at such and such a church. And I was wondering why you'd watch something like that. He said, I had no idea. I am so glad that my pastor didn't get a call. Hey, I just want to let you know, I'd come to your church, but you're a bunch of hypocrites. Because your youth pastor rented this kind of schmuck. Just saying. People are watching. So this is a trap, and Jesus knows it's a trap. Jesus understood when they invited them this was a trap. He shows up, he sees the trap, he knows what the trap is. And I had to ask myself, why would Jesus go to dinner at a chief Pharisee's home knowing it's all just a trap? Now it'd be somewhat foolish for any of us, but Jesus is God. He knew what was going on, and he understands what is on their heart and what's on their mind and what their motives are. So before anyone says anything to him, he says, as he walks in to the lawyers and the Pharisees, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? Is it against the law? Is it okay? Am I breaking any rules if I heal on the Sabbath? Now these men understand, they insisted on the strictest adherence to not just the law, but all of their oral laws, which they say is upwards of 700 oral laws. I've talked to probably Ignazi, you're probably getting sick of hearing it about the Pharisees and all that they would do to observe the law, even hanging scripture in their face as they would walk around so they'd always keep the word of God. And they were extreme about it. But the reality was they didn't really even understand the law. Nowhere in the law does it say anything about healing. Mainly because they can't do it. If you can't do it, you don't really have to cover if it's allowed or not. They know work, and they defined work, but healing was never a part of what they taught. It'd be like me going to a basketball court and be like, hey, is it okay if I dunk? I can't dunk. So I don't know why I'm asking if it's okay. I can't do it. So they never needed to know. And so they didn't know what the law said about healing, honestly. And so they kind of were stumped. They knew they saw it as work, so they just threw it under the headline of it. It's work, it's wrong, but there's nothing really said against it. There's nothing wrong with it, especially when God's doing it. By the way, if there's a day that you want God to do something amazing, wouldn't it be on the day that you set aside to worship God? Anyways, they're kind of dumb. So they're stumped. They held their peace. That's what the passage says. They held their peace, meaning they didn't say a word. And without anyone saying anything, Jesus goes right over to the man that needs him and heals him. I love that part too. In a room full of a bunch of prestigious, wealthy, religious, elite, educated men that Jesus could have gotten in with and been part of the crowd, he goes to the one man that knows that he has a need. We ought to be more like that, especially at church, but everywhere. We should be more willing. Okay, I'm going to get real personal. I'm trying not to look at anybody or say anybody's name or anything. Hey, you should be willing. I'm looking up at the clock just so none of y'all say, he looked right at me. When you come into church, it's kind of weird. Okay, that's weird not making eye contact. Sorry. When you come into church, you shouldn't go, where am I going to sit? Well, that's too close. And you've referenced the front. That's too close. I don't want to sit by them. I don't even know them. They kind of look out of place anyway. I don't want to sit by them because they may do something funky in church. I don't want to sit over there. And you as a church member decide where you're going to pick to sit with, where you feel comfortable, not where somebody might need somebody to come sit close to them. Now, by the way, that doesn't mean you just walk up to a stranger and you say, hey, buddy, how are you doing? We're glad you're here today. That might not help. And for YouTube, I just put my arm around one of our guys in the church. So that might not make the visitor feel very comfortable either. When you get downstairs for lunch, I know we have people we enjoy talking to and fellowshipping with more, but don't you think there's people down there that might need somebody to sit with them more than the people that you sit with every Sunday? I'm just saying, it might be good if we get the mentality of Jesus where we're not so worried about fitting in, we're not so worried about who we get along with, we're worried about who needs me most. Because church is not a place where we go, God, what can you do for me? It's, God, how can I serve you? If you want to call that person up, have them over to your house and sit around and talk till midnight, do that. But when there's people that look a little out of place, a little uncomfortable, maybe people would kind of shy away from, that ought to be your job. You say, well, we're all split. Yeah, everybody crowd around the visitor then. Sorry, visitors. Weird to say with visitors, but okay. So after healing this man, it says that he let him go. By the way, that's kind of further implying that he was not invited to stay for dinner. And because Jesus is a perfect gentleman, he's not going to invite somebody to dinner that he was invited to. It's not his dinner. He can't say stay and eat. So he lets him go. He heals him. By the way, that's probably the best thing he could have done, because you know that dude walks out and let's say his name was Bill and they're, Bill, is that you? Because he was swollen and deformed and, and waterlogged. And now all of a sudden, man, he is healed and he's feeling good. He says, Jesus Christ, he came over to the chief Pharisee's house and he just put his hand, and we don't know. It doesn't actually say how he healed him. I wish I knew. I don't know if he put his hand on him. I don't know if he just said, you're healed. If he just looked at him and it was like all the water just like flushed out onto the floor and made a mess on the Pharisee's floor. That's what I hope happened, because that's what they deserved. Yeah, mop that. Then he could mop it up. Anyways, I don't know how exactly he did it, but the man is healed. And he walks out, and I'm sure he was praising the Lord. And then everybody's still, everybody's still silent. So look back at the passage. And he answered them. That's verse 5. And he answered them, saying, nobody said anything, Jesus. Well, he knew exactly what they were thinking. Oh, they were licking their chops. As soon as he healed this man, oh, he just sinned. He just did wrong. He did something he's not supposed to do. He shouldn't have healed on the Sabbath day. Now, I wasn't going to be the one out loud to say that it's wrong to heal on the Sabbath day, but now that he's done it, I'm going to think in my head how wrong that is. By the way, if you've got an opinion, if you're not willing to share it, then you probably shouldn't be thinking it anyway, for the most part. And I know some of y'all have opinions you really shouldn't share, but if you have a strong opinion about something, if you think somebody's sinning, if you think somebody's doing wrong, don't be afraid to talk to them about it. It's okay. Iron sharpens the iron, faithful are the wounds of a friend, so just saying. So they're all quiet, and so he says, knowing what they're thinking, gets them solid. This is what you call a gotcha moment in politics. When they're arguing in politics, it's the gotcha moment. Which of you shall have an ass or an ox fallen into a pit and will not straightway pull him out on the Sabbath day? All of a sudden, it's like he brings to every one of them in their minds that moment when one of their animals fell into a ditch on the Sabbath day and they had to hurriedly work and get it out so it didn't die. By the way, still nobody says anything. Nothing says guilt like silence or barking real loud. The first to bark is the guilty, I hear, something like that. So he says this to them, and they don't, and verse 6, and they could not answer him again to these things because they know they did the exact same thing. And maybe even in their heart and in their mind, they tried to justify, well, if I didn't go get my ox out of that ditch, if I didn't go, it was going to die. I would be a waste of money. It would perish, Jesus. Well, don't you think somebody, a real true person, is more important than that animal? And if you're willing to break all the law so that you can save an animal, even if this was, which it's not breaking the law, even if it was, wouldn't I be justified in doing that to save a person? We don't know how debilitating, whatever form of dropsy this man had. We don't know if he only had a few more days to live, by the way. The Bible doesn't say. We don't know. Now they all remain silent. They're all stumped. Jesus just got them. But since Jesus is here, he's going to do what he came for. He's going to teach them. Let me teach y'all something. Now Jesus takes some time to address specifically those that were invited to this dinner with a parable. Now don't forget, a parable is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. So he's giving them a personal story that is earthly, but he's got a heavenly meaning he's going to teach them. We'll get to that at the end. Look back at the passage. We'll read it real quick, and I promise the rest of this will go faster than the beginning of it. If you pay attention and smile and don't look so bored. If you look bored, I'm just going to draw it out anyway because I can do that. Just kidding. Verse 7. And he put forth a parable to those which were bidden when he marked how they chose out the chief rooms, saying unto them, when thou art bidden of any man to a wedding, sit not down in the highest room, lest a more honorable man than thou be bidden of him. And he that bade thee, and him come and say to thee, give this man place, and thou begin with shame to take the lowest room. But when thou art bidden, go and sit down in the lowest room, that when he that bade thee, when he that invited thee cometh, he may say unto thee, friend, go up higher. Then shalt thou have worship in the presence of them that sit at meat with thee. For whosoever exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. All right, this is basically a story, so I'm going to just paint the picture in 2021. I'm going to try, okay? I'm going to use our wedding, my wife and I's wedding, because to be honest, I zone out at most weddings anyway. I barely remember my own. Anyways, I had finals the day before I got married. I didn't care too much about the marriage part. I was just ready to get over it. At our wedding, we had a table that was sat in front of everybody. It was a large table sat in front of everybody, and it was even elevated, and it was where the bride, the groom, and our bridal party sat. So I had like my two brothers-in-laws and my two brothers. I don't remember who my wife had. Don't really care anyway. But there were some women there that were sitting beside her too. That was our seat. And then there was tables that were closer, which is where like parents and family, and then you get your friends, and then you get all the way back to like there's the kiddie table back in the back kind of thing. So imagine this with me. Jesus says, okay, you get invited to a wedding, and you show up. He says, he's watching them, by the way. He's watching how they're pining for the highest and best places in the house. They'd have been in somebody's house, and most people were not rich enough, even the chief Pharisee, to have everybody sit in one room. So you'd have people sitting in this room where the chief Pharisee is, maybe the next room, and maybe even the next room. There's seats everywhere, and in each table they would have 3 chairs. Each table had 3 chairs. The 2 outward chairs were not the chair of prominence. It was the center chair that was the most honorable chair, and then there was typically a table that was put in the middle of everything, and that's where the guest of honor would be sat, which probably should have been Jesus, but this is the point. All these Pharisees now, they just got stumped by Jesus. Well, let's eat dinner. Now they all start trying to get, fight and peruse. And have you ever seen somebody, like when you get to the last chair in musical chairs with 2 people, and then, the music stops and the 2 people sit down, and it's just whoever's bigger wins usually because they just push the other person right on off. They're doing that number to each other. They're fighting for the best seats. He sees how they're jockeying for position, and so he gives a verse. He says, this is what you need to do. When you get invited to a wedding, don't go and sit in the most honorable table you can get to. Because imagine this. Again, picture my wedding, big table here, more tables there. Imagine why the bridal party's all taking pictures if some guy, some random dude gets up and he sits like where my wife's supposed to sit. Okay, maybe not that one because they said bride, that'd be kind of awkward. Next one over. And he sits there and he starts eating, right? And then father-in-law or my father, somebody's got to come up to him and say, can I talk to you for a minute? This is in front of everybody. Everybody's eating, watching this exchange. Could you stand up for me? And now he kind of, no, get your food. Yeah, you can't sit there. We're going to have to get you somewhere else. They start walking by tables, and maybe the guy's like, oh, well, there's a seat right there. He's like, yeah, I know. There's a seat over there. Yeah, I see it. Don't worry, I got you. And he takes them all the way back to either the kiddie table or the table right next to the bathrooms, because those are the 2 worst tables to be at. Sits him back on the kiddie table. How embarrassing. No, imagine with me, how embarrassing would that be? If while everybody's sitting there eating, you get escorted from the most honorable place in the entire room to the kiddie table or to the table next to the bathroom at the back. This shame. That'd be mortifying, really. I mean, depending on who you are. It depends on how much you care, I guess, too. Some of you are like, I don't care. Whatever. So he says, don't do that. Instead, when you show up to this wedding, go sit next to the bathroom. And then let the person that invited you see you back there and go, hey, friend, you can't sit at the kiddie table. No, come over here. Leave the kids, though. Come over here. Come sit right here at the family table next to me. And then everybody's going, man, who is that guy or who is that gal that she got to sit right up front in the family section? I don't even know her. And everybody's honoring it. Wow, that's amazing. And Jesus, so again, this is a parable, meaning an earthly story. Now, it's a very literal earthly story with a heavenly meaning. So what is the heavenly meaning? It's simply this, and this is lesson number 3. To a group of men who spent their lives jockeying for position and trying their best to make themselves look good, he says, don't worry about exalting yourself because that will lead to being humbled. But if you are humble, God will exalt you to a place of prominence. 1 Peter 5:5, the end of that verse says, for God resisteth the proud and giveth grace to the humble. No doubt this was exactly what this proud group of men needed to hear. A group of men that spent their lives trying to be noticed, trying to be the man of honor, trying to be the guy that everybody thought was awesome. And Jesus says, hey, whoa, let me encourage you. If you'll go sit at the back, watch how much more honor you'll get. If you're humble, watch how other people will lift you up. How about you, though? That's what they needed to hear. I don't know you outside of church for the most part, but are you jockeying for position at work? Kind of a suck up to the boss? By the way, that's really annoying if you are. I'm just going to help you out. I've worked with suck ups. Probably been a suck up before. I don't know. It's really annoying when you're a suck up. Jockeying for position you want. If there's an opening, I want him to think of me. Or you jockey for position in your family where you want everybody to think you're the wealthiest, the coolest, the smartest, the best. Your family. You know what I hate? Coming to Christmas or Thanksgiving or something, and it's like all a facade. The way your nieces and nephews are dressed, you're like, there's not a day out of the rest of the year that they dress that nice. And they're trying to be behaved, but you can tell they don't know how to be behaved and they're acting crazy. And everybody puts on their best face because they want everybody to think, I'm awesome. I'm so proper. My life is so good. But behind closed doors, their lives are falling apart. Are you somebody that is so worried in your pride that you've got to promote yourself? You've got to be noticed. Everybody's got to think you're something. I warned you. I warn you what Jesus just warned them. Pride goeth before a fall. Now, having helped those that were invited to the dinner, he shifts to helping those that would invite people to dinner, to those that would bid. Verses 12 through 14, read it real quick. And then he said also to them that bade him, when thou makest a dinner or a supper, call not thy friends, nor thy brethren, neither thy kinsmen, nor thy rich neighbor. By the way, that is awesome how he worded that. Don't invite your friends, which, by the way, if I was going to have a party, the first people I'd invite would probably be my friends, then probably family. But I love that last one. Or your rich neighbor. They're not family, they're not friends, but they're rich. So if they got a nice bass boat, I'm going to invite them over because maybe they'll invite me out on their bass boat or whatever. I love that. Y'all need to get with it this morning. This is funny stuff. Goodness. Lest they also bid thee again, and a recompense be made thee. But when thou makest a feast, call the poor, and the maimed, and the lame, the blind, and thou shalt be blessed, for they cannot recompense thee, for thou shalt be recompensed at the resurrection of the just. All right, again, this is another simple one. He's saying, all right, you're having a dinner party or a supper party, which would be a lunch party, which is okay to have people at lunch too. They're all dinners. He said, you have somebody over. Don't go inviting all the people that you know can do something for you. Well, I invite my friend over because that way I'll have Super Bowl party this year. Next year he has the Super Bowl party. Then he can have it at his house, and he's got to buy all the snacks and the drinks. Talking Dr. Pepper, not alcohol. But the drinks, the Dr. Pepper. And then that way next year he can pay me back, and I can sit back and I can get away from my kids and go watch it at his place. Or I'm going to invite my family because I know when they have a party, then they'll invite me and it'll be great. And then the people they know will be there and it'll be a good way to meet people. I'm going to invite them. And then, of course, the rich friend. I don't really know them at all, but they've got a boat. Or they've got, here it is. Here's the real one. They got a certain tool that I'd love to borrow sometime. They got a snowplow. Let me go get in with them. That way when it snows, maybe they'll plow my yard too. Okay, maybe too literal for y'all. I'm sorry if I touched feelings. Here's lesson number 4. And I only had 4 lessons, I guess. I thought I had 5. Or no, I did have 5. This is 5. Maybe, I don't know. Don't look at people for what they can do for you. Don't look at people for what they can do for you. Don't look at who you date. Oh, well, they got a lot of money in that family. If I marry into that family, we'll be set for life. No, you won't. They're that way because they're greedy already. They ain't going to share with you. Sorry, maybe that's not true. I don't know. Hey, I'll spend time with them because they got a pool table and a game room. And man, I love that stuff. They'll invite me over. We aren't supposed to invite people to church or soul win based on what we think they can bring to the church either. Now, I'm going to say that again because this is something that just drives me nuts. This is wickedness. When you look at somebody and you say, I'm going to invite them, or I'm going to go talk to them about church because, man, they got a big house. I bet they got a lot of money. Oh, they've got all the connections. If I get in with them, it's endless, the opportunities. You say, is that wrong? Yes, that's wrong. Because the person that's living on the streets needs Jesus just as much as the person that lives in the mansion. Amen. Jesus said the reward will come at the resurrection of the just. It's a reference to eternity. That is the point when rewards will be given. He says, instead of inviting all those people that you think can do something for you, invite the people that can't do anything for you and let God reward you in heaven. By the way, it can happen on earth. Brother Miser gave a wonderful story, and I don't have time to give the whole story, but here's the long and short of it. There was a man in their church that was, he was going to college, he was on his way to being something very successful. Got in a car wreck, messed him up mentally, and he was I don't know what the proper term, mentally handicapped now. All he could do all his life was be a dishwasher. And that's all he did all his life. He walked to church every Sunday, walked to church every Wednesday. He never seemed like something much. He never had nice clothes on. The house that he lived in, that he lived in with his mom, then his mom died, and he had the house looked very shabby. It was, all around you wouldn't think anything of it. This man dies, and he leaves everything to the church. Property there in Denver, the house sells for in the sad state it was in, sold for $400,000 or $500,000. Then he left his bank account, and you think a dishwasher, how much could he have in his bank account? Well, apparently he not only had all the money that he'd been saving from dishwashing because he didn't spend it, but all his mom's money that she left him when he died, and it was hundreds of total. They had gotten over $750,000 out of this man. And it was because they just ministered to the guy that was the least among them. And they didn't treat him. They didn't know what he had. They didn't treat him. And they didn't look at him for what he could use. And God used that money to keep the church out of the red. It was during COVID. It was keeping the church and the camp both out of the red. They were able to back pay their staff that they had to take pay away from during COVID and stuff. It was God worked miraculously. And it wasn't because Brother Miser's out there going, well, we need to find somebody rich to get into this church so we can find some tithers. God used the least among them. Mm-hmm. That's biblical, by the way. You can look it up. All right, I don't have any more time. Here we go. Let's get in. Why would Jesus go to dinner at the chief Pharisee's home knowing it was a trap? Here's why. Jesus was willing to go to dinner at the chief Pharisee's home knowing it was a trap because Jesus loves people and desires to help them, even if they didn't think they knew it. He willingly walked into a trap because he said, I know what the trap is. It is a man that needs me. It is a man that needs to be healed, and I will go do it. And even if they didn't think that they needed him, he said, I've got some good eternal lessons to teach these Pharisees. By the way, they're going to continue into next week. We just stopped here, but we're going to continue right into this dinner party next week. Okay, so just keep your mind on that. But he had eternal lessons to teach them. And to summarize those lessons real quick, and we'll be done. Whether you're at church or work or wherever you are, there are those that have needs, and it may not be as obvious as this man with dropsy, but it is a much more debilitating need. They're dead spiritually. Are you willing to help them? Will you tell them of a God who loves them, that died for them? Will you show them that no matter how bad their life seems, they can be saved and changed? Number 2, if in your pride you are focused on making yourself seem awesome or intelligent or spiritual, God will make sure to abase or knock you down by sticking you at the kiddie table. Most importantly, don't let your pride stop you from witnessing to others. Focus rather on what you can do to help others, and then you will be exalted. And lastly, don't soul win, invite people to church, or even try to make friends based on how they can benefit you in the future. If you will go to those who can't do anything for you, your reward will come from God Himself. And there's nothing anyone can do for you that will outdo what God can do for you. Here's the truth I'll encourage you to take home with you, and then we'll be done. Humble yourself and let God exalt you. Help those that can't do anything for you and let God reward you. Let's say that again. Humble yourself and let God exalt you. Help those who can't do anything for you and let God reward you. Heads bowed and eyes closed. No one looking around. No one talking, please. Everybody's heads are down, eyes are closed for a reason. I want a private environment in a public place. Ask a couple questions here. Number 1, is there any here that would say, I, like this man with the dropsy, have a need? It may not be dropsy, but I don't know Jesus is my personal Savior. But I'm willing for you to at least pray for me, Pastor. If you'll slip your hand up, I will pray for you. It won't save you. My prayers don't save you, but I'll pray that God give you the